Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be covering X-Men issues. Now issue 122 debuted in March of 1979 and issue 125 debuted in September of 1979. So that's the era we're going to be covering today. So here on the cover of issue 122 you can see Colossus is separating two big heavy cinder blocks or walls if you will. And he's struggling with that, and it says right here, the trial of Colossus. To the first page, and Wolverine and Cyclops, they take notice of Colossus struggling with lifting this weight. Now, Colossus in his human form, he's about 300 pounds of muscle. So he easily can bench about 400 pounds as a human, not even as Colossus. So right here, this machine that he's struggling with, to him, that's like 200 pounds. So while it's not light, it's light for him. It's like he shouldn't be struggling with this. So Cyclops is telling Wolverine there's something wrong with him. Like his mind isn't in the game. This is something he should lift very easily, yet he's struggling and he's yelling out to please turn the machine off. It's too heavy. He says, I think I know what's wrong with him. So he sabotages the machine to the point where Cyclops can't turn it off even if he wanted to. And he goes down there to talk to Colossus. And he says, why are you struggling with this? And Colossus is saying, please turn it off, it's too heavy, I'm gonna get crushed. And he goes, we can't, the machine don't work. So he goes, I know you must be feeling a certain way. He goes, if you don't hold this, it's gonna also kill me. Wolverine, he can heal, so he'll come back, he won't die. That's why he can take these risks. But to us as the reader, you kind of forget about that sometimes, and you're like, oh wow, like he's real ballsy, right? And all of a sudden, Colossus just puts more effort into it and he crushes the machine. Wolverine lets them know, see, no problem. It wasn't shit for you, right? It was very easy. And Colossus have a heart-to-heart where Colossus is letting them know, like, man, I didn't know you had so much faith in me. He's letting Colossus know, look, I know most of us are drifters. We're like lone wolves. You came to the X-Men, but you had a family. You had parents. You had your siblings, brothers and sisters. Because you were living a normal life. We were all like rogues, so this doesn't affect us as much as it affects you because you were more used to, basically kind of, Colossus was like more sheltered. So he's feeling homesick. That's why he's so like naive a lot of the time, even though he looks like the biggest and strongest. And this is a cool moment between Wolverine and Colossus as just people, right? Just talking about day-to-day things. And Cyclops, he's kind of missing this in his arsenal. Because since he was a little kid, he's been raised by Professor X, just training, fighting against villains. Like, he's never had a normal life. So he doesn't know what that feels like. So he doesn't miss that, right? So he's not good at, like, socializing with people. He doesn't have, his job is all about work, right? And it shows Wolverine's been around the block. He's lived. So he knows what it is to live and what it is to kind of miss that aspect of your life. Cyclops sends Wolverine back to the training room and he leaves them there too because as like a punishment, right? You know, like a coach that says, go run 50 laps. And he tells them that stunt you pulled, no bueno, homie. Like, that shit is out. Like, it worked this time, but what about it had it not worked and you put both of yourselves in dangers? So while the results were good, the methods were not. Colossus says, everything is fine. It all worked out. Cyclops says, that's not the point. It might not next time. So now Cyclops leaves. We see Banshee and Nightcrawler working on the jet, right, with the X-Men jet, and Cyclops is very like distant. So this woman Colleen that's also there is asking Cyclops, "What's wrong?" It's like your mind is somewhere else, and he's just thinking that Professor X and Lilandra left to space, and he doesn't know that we're alive again. And I just feel like he might not come back at all. He might be happy there and forget about this dream we were chasing about equality and mutant rights and all that. Another scene with Jean Grey. She's coming from the mall. She obviously bought a lot of clothes. You know, women, they come with like 20 bags. So this guy, Mastermind, he's an OG villain that used to work with Magneto. He was part of the original Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So here we're seeing him slowly make a comeback. And he trips up Jean Grey, so she kind of drops her bags and stuff. And he helps her pick it up. So he's acting very gentlemanly-like, and he can mess with your mind. That's why his name is Mastermind. So he's this old guy, not that good-looking either, but he has the powers to make Jean Grey see something different. So what we're seeing here in the pictures is he's this young, attractive guy, and he's kind of like flirting with Jean Grey. He's starting to sow the seeds here because Chris Claremont, he likes to play the long game. So here in issue 122, we're already getting introduced to this guy. He's back in the X-Men comics and stuff, and he's going to be planning something for the long run for like 10 issues ahead, which means like a year later, right? Now he's just thinking to himself, yes, it worked. She's attracted to me. Now I could kind of seduce her and get her to do what I want. At this point, we don't know what that is yet, but in the future, we know it ended up being a real classic story of the X-Men. Storm, now that we're back in New York, is like she wants to get to know New York a little better because it's all been all work, no play, basically, right? So she's walking around Harlem and she's starting to see more people of color, kind of people like her. So she's like, oh, there's people like me here, like maybe I fit in a little more here. And she's just being exposed to this new big city, right? And she's like, even here, people are just like staring at me and stuff because, you know, she has silver hair and white eyes. So she's still going to stand out. Plus, she's like tall and attractive. So she's going to stand out no matter where she goes, even if she was just a regular human. She walks into these broken down projects. And so far, this story is like, this issue is a lot more grounded. We see she's like, oh, damn, there's a bunch of heroin addicts and like crackheads. And they're all just hanging out in this abandoned building. And she's like, wow, like it's a lot of homeless people. And like, you know, we're in the ghetto now. So we're seeing the struggles that happen there. And how people can fall victim to your environment, right? And she's being exposed to this for the first time. And she just gets this eerie feeling about it because she's used to living in a mansion with Professor X. And even their problems, they do fight crime and they see a lot of violence, but it's a lot different than this where people are so like defeated, like on their own. So one of these junkies sees Storm, he recognizes she doesn't belong here. So they pull out pocket knives and they kind of circle around her and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? Who are you? So she's like in a very bad position. Well, they kind of want to make it more grounded. So they want to make her feel helpless, even though we know she's real powerful and she could take everybody out real easy. She's not using her superpowers. So we're showing she still has strength just as a regular person without relying on her mutant abilities. She grabs one of these guys by the wrist, says, drop that knife, like, I don't want to hurt you, but I'm very capable of defending myself. So now the next guy stabs her in the hand with his pocket knife. So she goes all Storm on them, right? Now they done fucked up because now she's using her superpowers and she's slamming them around everywhere with the winds. Luke Cage and Misty Knight show up. They're talking to Storm like, what are you doing here? You live in like the nice area of New York, right? This is like the ghetto. This is where Misty Knight and Luke Cage roam around. They're like, this is what we see every day. These are our neighborhoods. So they're like more small-time criminals while the X-Men are like soldiers and stuff, FBI. Luke Cage and Misty Knight are more like your local police. They're trying to clean up the neighborhood while the others are trying to save the world, right? So, but those stories, when you're trying to clean up just like smaller scale stuff, they often feel like better stories and they're more grounded and more realistic, right? So you feel like you get more out of it. So now we jump into issue 123, which was released in July of 1979. Here in the cover, you see it says Arcade's Murder World. So we're being introduced to Arcade, who's a kind of crazy psycho villain of the X-Men. So clearly he's going to be the villain here. And we see Spider-Man. I don't read a lot of the older Spider-Man issues, so I'm not sure if he was originally a Spider-Man villain or an X-Men villain. But I know he appears a lot in Spider-Man comics as well, at least back then at this time. So this issue starts off where Wolverine is walking Mariko back home to her house or apartment or whatever. And it's not clear here what she's doing in New York because he met her in Japan. So I don't know what she's doing here. It's not explained yet. And, Wolverine and her are kind of starting to date. And then we see every X-Men one by one, starting with Banshee, get shot in the back. Then Storm gets shot in the back. So somebody's just catching other X-Men slipping and they're taking them out and capturing them. Now they have their guard down at this time because it's a villain. They're not aware. The X-Men wake up. They're all trapped in these balls. And they're in this giant pinball machine and they're the pinballs. So Arcade is just kind of having fun with them. Like he's making them run this gauntlet or obstacle course, if you will. And he's trying to keep them all separated. Like every time X-Men fails, he gets trapped in this specific room with doors. Now they're led to believe one door leads you out and the other two are trapdoors. But really, all three are trapdoors. Because Arcade, he's just an asshole, right? So he's not going to give him any opportunity to escape. Now Colossus falls into a different room with this kind of detective looking guy. He says he's works for the government in Russia. and he's kind of brainwashing Colossus, and he turns Colossus into a villain. So now Colossus, in this sick, twisted game of pinball or whatever, he's now like a villain, and he's who the X-Men have to fight off. Now this complicates things because they want to stop Colossus, but they don't want to hurt him because he's still an X-Men. When X-Men issue 124 starts, we see Colossus here choking out Cyclops and Storm. So this was released in August of 79. I like how here in these old issues, the covers kind of show you what's going on in that particular issue. Or the beginning, we get a backstory or origin story of Arcade. So he's letting the reader know here that he was a spoiled rich kid, kind of an asshole. His dad cut him off from the wealth. So he killed his dad and inherited all the money. And that's how he has so much money to build these like Disneyland type places that are, it's called Murder World, with all these obstacle courses and all this stuff. That's how he got some money, and he's a dick because he was spoiled rotten, basically. Here we see Jean Grey and some of the other girls trapped in these tubes where they can't move their arms or legs, like only their heads are sticking out. And Arcade is just kind of laughing at them, how easy it is to catch all the X-Men. And then we see Storm. She's still free, and she's flying around, and she gets thrown in this area where it's like a lot of water. So she gets thrown in this thing, and she's scared because there's water and she could drown, right? And she's claustrophobic as it is. She finds this tunnel to dig through under. Once she releases all this water, it goes to where Wolverine and Cyclops and everybody's at, and they're fighting Arcade at this point because they found where he was at. He was where Colossus was at, and he was getting brainwashed. So the water just hits everybody, and you see Storm kind of having trouble breathing. She's like passed out here. Cyclops gives her mouth to mouth, wakes her back up, but we're still in the mix of this fight with Arcade and Colossus. Tosses Cyclops like nothing, tosses Wolverine like nothing, and then he just grabs Storm, and then he grabs Cyclops as he gets back up, and he's choking both of them, which is what we kind of saw in the cover. He looks very menacing, like he's totally possessed. He doesn't know who he is. And Storm says, "Oh, we're your friends, we're your family." And Colossus just snaps out of it. He goes, "Yeah, you're my family." And it's back to normal. He's like, "I'm sorry for what I'm doing. I don't know what came over me." As they're talking, the floor that they're standing on, it wraps them around like in a pinball, but this time the steel pinball. And it shoots them out through this tube, and they come out through the sewers onto the surface again. So it turned out Arcade was hired by Juggernaut and Black Tom Cassidy to try to kill the X-Men. He obviously failed, something he says he never does. He's like the best hitman or assassin, but they got away this time because so he basically just booked it, left, and they flew back to the surface world. Okay, so we're reading these in chronological order. So after that issue, it would be X-Men Annual number 3. And this one says a 75-cent issue. So it's a double-sized issue. So it's more pages, therefore the price is different. Here on the cover, we have this guy that's almost like a Conan type character. And that's very much what this story is. It doesn't really connect with the continuity. This guy just appears in New York City. Kind of like Arnold in the Terminator movie, how he just appears in the city and he starts looking for Sarah Connor. Same thing, he just appears and he's looking for the X-Men because his world is in trouble and he needs some superheroes. Now we jump to the X-Men mansion, and Storm, she's in her room and she likes gardening, so she has all kinds of plants and stuff, and she can make water appear to water them. She's kind of doing that. She finds it relaxing because she's kind of stressed out after a hard day at the Danger Room. And this Conan wannabe appears out of nowhere, grabs Storm and starts choking her, and he says, "I need you to come back to my world to save me." So while his intentions are not completely bad, the way he's going about things it's very aggressive and it comes off villainous, right? It's not cool. Now the rest of the X-Men, they find out about the scuffle. Everybody runs to help, and they kind of want to find out who this guy is. So Colossus and him kind of go at it. They're the two powerhouses. And Colossus kind of knocks his block off and sends him into a pool here. Now, as they're fighting, he tells Storm, "I need you because you're very powerful. You can be very helpful to what I'm trying to do here." As they're arguing, Colossus hits him across the back with a giant tree. So the fight's pretty much over. This guy's laid out. Now they're asking him, "What is it you want?" He explains to them his world is in trouble and they're like, okay, we're willing to help, but you could have just asked instead of coming in all guns blazing, you know, like trying to like force us to do it. So once they talk, he teleports them back to his world. They basically make Storm a goddess here because they see her powers and how she can control weather, and that's exactly what they need. So everyone here admires her, and they put her in a new outfit where she looks gorgeous. Like she looks like she fits right in. I think she tops Red Sonja here as far as outfits go. So he's explaining that he was looking for Thor, the god of thunder. He couldn't find him. He found Storm. She also can control weather and thunder. And now he's explaining to her the situation. She needs to get a big amount of lightning, basically, to help control this machine. And she's not sure if she's strong enough, but she realizes Colossus is made of metal. So if he holds her up while she brings a bunch of lightning, it will create a more powerful lightning, basically. And that can be enough to save them, right? So this idea works perfectly. That's pretty much the end of the issue. It's very much trying to be like Conan. It's even called Rogues in the House, like a classic Conan story. This would have fit better in the Thor book. So this issue was pretty skippable. It was an annual that didn't really mean much to the continuity. And I think we're gonna end this video here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way it'll keep you notified on your feed when the continuation to these stories continue. Other than that, I'd just like to thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to check out the video, and I'll check you guys out next time.